Could the legends of bloodthirsty vampires be more than just myth? What if I told you that real people have claimed to encounter these terrifying creatures in the dead of night, and some never lived to tell the tale? Vampires. We often think of them as nothing more than characters from movies or stories passed down to frighten children. But what if these creatures aren't just confined to the realm of fiction? What if buried deep within history and folklore, there are true accounts of bloodthirsty beings that walked among us? Tonight, we're diving into 5 bone-chilling vampire sightings from across the globe. These are not just tales of the supernatural. They're stories of real people in real places who encountered something far beyond the ordinary, something horrifying. These are the stories that haunt the darkest corners of our history, and they are not for the faint-hearted. So, settle in and prepare to be unnerved as we explore the world of the undead. In the shadowy woods of 19th century New England, fear was a constant companion. The air was thick with dread as tuberculosis, known then as consumption, tore through communities, leaving death and despair in its wake. This was a time when medical knowledge was limited, and the unknown bred strange and terrifying beliefs. As the disease claimed life after life, whispers of something more sinister began to spread. Whispers of the undead, of vampires. Among the most infamous cases was that of Mercy Brown, a young woman whose death would ignite a firestorm of superstition. When her family fell ill after her passing, the townspeople were convinced that Mercy had risen from her grave to drain the life from them. Driven by fear, they exhumed her body, only to find it shockingly well preserved. The locals believed this was proof of her undead state. In a macabre ritual, they removed her heart and burned it, hoping to break the curse and save the living. The eerie scene of Mercy's exhumation still sends chills down the spine. Imagine the cold New England air, the silent gathering of fearful villagers, and the flickering torchlight illuminating the grave. Burning her heart wasn't just an attempt to save the family. It was a desperate effort to ward off an ancient fear of the unknown, of something that lurked just beyond the edge of understanding. Now let's travel back even further, to the medieval era of 12th century England. A time when the line between reality and superstition was thin, and the night was filled with untold terrors. In the shadow of Alnwick Castle, one of England's most formidable strongholds, a dark legend was born, a legend of a man who defied death and returned to haunt the living. The story begins with a servant, a man of ill repute, who had lived a life of crime and sin. Upon his death, the villagers thought they were rid of him. Soon after, however, disturbing reports began to surface. The dead man had been seen prowling the streets at night, his presence heralded by a sense of dread and an unquenchable thirst for blood. Fear gripped the town as the villagers realized that what they were facing was no ordinary ghost, but a creature of the night, a vampire. The villagers' terror reached its peak when they discovered the man's corpse, bloated and filled with fresh blood, a sight that left them horrified. They knew that they had only one option left: to burn the body. The flames consumed the undead flesh, and with it, the fear that had gripped the village. But the legend of the Alnwick vampire lived on, a grim reminder of the darkness that once walked among them. Our journey now takes us to the small village of Kisiljevo in 18th century Serbia, a place where the veil between life and death was perilously thin. It was here that one of the most chilling vampire stories in history unfolded, a story that would spread fear across the entire region. It all began with the death of Petar Blagojevich, a simple peasant whose passing seemed ordinary, until the deaths began. 9 villagers died in rapid succession, each one claiming on their deathbed that Petar had visited them in the night, draining their life away. The villagers, gripped by fear, could not ignore the signs. They exhumed Petar's body, and what they found shocked them to the core. His body was unnaturally preserved, his lips stained with fresh blood, a clear sign to the superstitious villagers that he had become a vampire. In a scene that would be repeated in vampire lore for centuries, the villagers drove a stake through Petar's heart, and as his body convulsed, the terror that had gripped Kisiljevo began to lift. But the memory of those terrifying nights and the creature that had haunted them would never fade. As we continue our journey, we find ourselves in the remote village of Anantapur in 19th century India, a place where ancient traditions and fear of the supernatural ran deep. The villagers of Anantapur were no strangers to strange occurrences, but nothing could prepare them for the terror that was about to descend upon them. The stories began with the livestock, cattle found dead in the fields, their bodies drained of blood. The villagers soon realized that the attacks were not confined to animals. People too began to fall victim to this unseen predator. Those who survived spoke of a shadowy figure with glowing eyes, a creature that seemed to vanish with the first light of dawn. The fear in the village was palpable as the people whispered of a vampire that had come to claim their blood. The attacks became part of the local folklore, a dark chapter in the village's history that is still spoken of in hushed tones today. The mysterious nature of these events and the fear they instilled in the villagers remains a chilling reminder of the power of the unknown. Finally, we return to England, to the windswept moors of Yorkshire, where the ancient ruins of Byland Abbey still stand. In the 12th century, the monks who lived within its walls recorded a terrifying tale that would become one of the most chilling accounts of vampire lore. The story tells of a sinner, a man whose deeds in life were so dark that even death could not contain him. After his passing, he was seen rising from his grave, attacking villagers and livestock, leaving a trail of fear in his wake. The monks, in their desperation, exhumed his body and were horrified by what they found. The man's corpse was in a state that could only be described as vampiric, bloated, with blood at the corners of his mouth. In a final, desperate act, the monks burned the body and with it, the terror that had haunted their abbey. The fear and uncertainty that gripped the monks and villagers of Byland Abbey are a testament to the enduring power of the vampire legend. This story has haunted humanity for centuries and continues to do so today. As we've journeyed through these chilling tales, one thing becomes clear. The fear of vampires, of the undead rising to prey on the living, transcends time and place. Whether in the foggy moors of England, the remote villages of Serbia, or the quiet towns of New England, the stories of these creatures of the night have left a lasting mark on our collective psyche. These accounts, though separated by centuries and continents, all share a common thread: an unshakable terror of the unknown and an enduring belief that the dead might not stay dead. So, are these just old stories, tales fueled by superstition and fear? Or is there something more to these legends, something lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike? We may never know the true nature of these creatures, but one thing is certain: whether you believe in vampires or not, these stories remind us that sometimes the most terrifying things are those we cannot fully explain.